Picture this. You're a kid in 1985, you walk out of a movie theater, and you don't want a bike anymore, you want a car that turns into a time machine. Every kid on your street wants the same thing. Nobody's talking about the actor. Everybody's talking about the car. That's the power we're digging into today, not horsepower, not 0 to 60, cultural horsepower, the kind that turns a factory car into a legend. Today we're looking at the 10 most iconic cars Hollywood ever put on screen. Real cars, real engines, real production lines, cars that got pulled out of dealership lots and turned into myths. If you want me to keep digging up the cars Hollywood turned into legends, hit subscribe. And if you're watching on your TV right now, grab your remote, go to the channel page and hit that subscribe button. It actually makes a difference. It's the only reason I get to keep doing this. Let's start the countdown. Number 10, the Ford Gran Torino. Back in 1974, Ford was building the Gran Torino as a mid-size family cruiser. Nothing flashy, a grocery getter with a big engine option. Then a TV show called Starsky and Hutch got hold of one, painted it red with a white vector stripe down the side, and turned it into something else entirely. Under the hood, buyers could get a 351 cubic inch Windsor V8, putting out around 162 horsepower in that era of smog-choked engines. Not a monster by today's standards, but paired with that red and white paint job, it didn't matter. The car became the character. Here's the strange part. Ford never officially sold a Starsky and Hutch edition. The studio bought regular Gran Torinos and had them painted. Some fans say the stripe was even Ford's least favorite option, barely ordered by real customers. And yet it became one of the most recognized paint jobs in automotive history. They built the Gran Torino from 1972 to 1976. Ford sold well over 1 million of them total. Most disappeared into junkyards decades ago, but that red one, the one that fishtailed around corners every week on network TV, that one still burned into the memory of an entire generation. Number 9, the Ecto 1. This one's a real car underneath all that gear. A 1959 Cadillac Miller Meteor. Originally built as a combination ambulance and hearse, the kind funeral homes used to run both jobs out of one vehicle. Practical, boring, built for a job nobody wants to think about. Then Ghostbusters got a hold of one in 1984 and turned it into a rolling ghost-catching laboratory. They loaded the roof with equipment, added lights, sirens, that unmistakable siren wail, and painted it up like something that just escaped a firehouse. The technical detail people forget, the real 1959 Miller Meteor rode on a Cadillac chassis with a 390 cubic inch V8. Massive car, nearly 21 feet long. It was already a strange, oversized machine before anyone put a Proton pack rig on the roof. The strangest part? The production. Team actually bought a car that was falling apart. It barely ran during filming. They had to tow it into several shots. A car playing a machine that saves the world, and it could barely save itself. They only used a couple of real cars for filming, plus a non-functional replica for static shots. Today, restored versions sell at auction for well over $100,000. Not bad for something that started life-carrying caskets. Number 8, Herbie. Just a Volkswagen. Beetle. That's it. That's the base car. No hidden gadgets, no reinforced frame, nothing exotic. Volkswagen built millions of these things starting in the late 1930s, and Disney picked one for their 1968 film, The Love Bug, specifically because it was ordinary. That was the joke. The most ordinary car on the road turns out to have a mind of its own. Under the hood, the standard Beetle ran a small air-cooled flat-4 engine, somewhere around 53 horsepower, depending on the year. That's it. A car that couldn't outrun a delivery truck in real life became, on screen, a racing champion that beat Ferraris and Lamborghinis in cross-country rallies. Here's the thing people love about this one. No supercharger, no hidden engine swap, no trick effects under the hood in the story itself. The whole gag was that this cheap, humble, mass-produced car had personality. Number 53 painted on the doors, racing stripes, a face somehow, in the headlights and bumper. Disney made 6 Herbie films across 4 decades. Volkswagen never officially partnered with Disney on it. In fact, VW mostly stayed hands-off. Didn't matter. Herbie sold more Beetles through word of mouth than most ad campaigns ever could. Number 7. KITT, the Pontiac Trans Am from Knight Rider. Technically a TV show, not a movie. But this car crossed over into movie culture so completely that leaving it off this list would be a mistake. The base car was a 1982 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am, one of the most aggressive-looking American cars of its era. The real production Trans Am in 1982 ran a 5.0-liter V8, putting out around 145 horsepower. Modest for something that looked like it belonged on a runway. On the show, KITT was written as an artificial intelligence with a turbine engine, armor plating, and a computer voice that talked back to its driver. None of that existed in the real car. That part's fiction, and we're flagging it clearly. No production Trans Am had a talking AI brain or bulletproof armor. It was TV magic, camera tricks, and a very good voice actor. The strangest real detail: the production team went through dozens of Trans Ams during filming because of how hard they pushed the cars during stunts. Some estimates put the number of KITT cars used across the show's run near 20. Pontiac built the Trans Am from 1967 all the way to 2002, when GM discontinued the Firebird line entirely. KITT alone is credited with reviving interest in the Trans Am during a decade when muscle cars were struggling under emissions regulations and rising gas prices. Number 6. The Ford Mustang GT390 from Bullitt. This is the one gearheads argue about at dinner tables. In 1968, Steve McQueen drove a Highland Green Mustang GT390 fastback through the hills of San Francisco in what's still considered one of the greatest car chases ever filmed. No fake speed tricks, no green screen. Real cars, real streets, real jumps. Under the hood, the GT390 ran a 390 cubic inch V8, producing 320 horsepower from the factory. Ford built two of these specifically modified for filming: reinforced suspension, stripped interiors to save weight, and safety roll cages hidden from camera view. Here's the part that turns this into legend. One of the two original Bullitt Mustangs disappeared for decades. Rumors, false leads, people claiming to have found it in barns and junkyards. It finally surfaced in 2017, sitting quietly in a family's garage in Tennessee the entire time. In 2020, that exact car sold at auction for $3.4 million. McQueen didn't do every stunt himself. Professional drivers handled the most dangerous jumps, but he did drive plenty of it personally, which was almost unheard of for a leading man at the time. That chase scene set the standard every car chase since has been measured against. Number 5. The Aston Martin DB5. Introduced by Aston Martin in 1963 as a Gran touring car for wealthy buyers who wanted elegance and speed in one package. Then Goldfinger came out in 1964, and James Bond got behind the wheel, and the DB5 stopped being just a British luxury car. It became the car every kid drew in the margins of their notebook. The real production DB5 ran a 4.0-liter straight-six engine, putting out around 282 horsepower, genuinely quick for 1964. On screen, the film's special effects team added rotating license plates, machine guns behind the headlights, an ejector seat, and a smokescreen. None of that came standard from the factory, and we're flagging that clearly. Aston Martin never sold a DB5 with weaponized headlights to the public. The strangest real detail: the film only used 2 DB5s total for all the gadget work and stunts, plus additional cars for publicity tours afterward. Aston Martin built fewer than 900 DB5s in total production, a tiny number for a car that became this recognizable. One of the original gadget-equipped Bond DB5s sold at auction in 2019 for just over $6.4 million. Aston Martin still leans on that James Bond connection in its marketing decades later. This is the car that proved a movie could sell more units through image than a decade of advertising ever could. Number 4. The General Lee. A 1969 Dodge Charger, painted bright orange with a giant ZO1 on the doors, welded shut, so the cast had to climb through the windows. This was the star vehicle of the Dukes of Hazzard, a TV show that ran from 1979 to 1985 and later spawned a 2005 movie. Dodge originally built the 1969 Charger with a range of engine options, topping out with the 426 Hemi V8, putting out 425 horsepower from the factory. Most of the cars used on the show ran smaller, more reliable V8s, since the production went through an enormous number of them for jump stunts. Here's the number that shocks people: Production reportedly destroyed somewhere between 300 and 330 Chargers over the course of the show, jumping them, crashing them, wrecking them for the camera. At the time, 1969 Chargers weren't seen as rare or valuable, just used cars. Today, an original, unmodified 1969 Charger can sell for well over $100,000, partly because the show wiped out so much of the surviving supply. The car itself has carried real controversy in recent years, tied to the Confederate flag painted on its roof, and several networks and retailers have pulled related merchandise because of it. Worth stating plainly, not. Glossing over, the imagery is part of why this car's legacy is complicated, not simple. Number 3, the 1970 Dodge Charger RT, driven by Dominic Toretto. Dodge built the RT trim as their performance flagship for the Charger lineup, and the 1970 model came with a 440 Magnum V8 as one of its most common performance engines, producing around 375 horsepower from the factory, with the rare 426 Hemi option pushing even higher. The Fast and the E Furious came out in 2001, and that matte black Charger with the supercharger poking through the hood became the visual signature of an entire franchise that's now made billions of dollars across more than a decade of sequels. The strangest part, in the original film, that Charger belonged to Dom's late father. It wasn't just a fast car, it was the emotional core of his character. The production destroyed several Chargers during filming of the street race finale, and the car has reappeared. Rebuilt, redesigned and referenced across nearly every sequel since. Original 1970 Chargers in good condition now regularly sell for six figures at auction, and the Fast and Furious connection is part of why an entire new generation of buyers who never watched a single episode of a 1970s TV show still want one parked in their driveway. Number 2, the Batmobile. This one's tricky because unlike most cars on this list, the Batmobile isn't one car. It's been rebuilt from scratch for nearly every new Batman production since the 1960s. We're flagging that clearly. There's no single factory model. Each version is a custom-built movie vehicle, some starting from real production chassis, others built entirely from the ground up. The 1966 TV series Batmobile was based on a 1955 Lincoln Futura concept car, customized by legendary car designer George Barris. That one had a real functioning Ford-sourced V8 under the hood. Then, in 1989, Tim Burton's film introduced a completely custom-built Batmobile, designed by Anton Furst, with a jet turbine-styled body built on a modified chassis. Christopher Nolan's version, the Tumbler, first appearing in 2005's Batman Begins, went even further, a nearly 6-ton armored vehicle built with a real 5.7-liter V8 engine, strong enough to actually perform the jumps and ramming stunts shown on screen. That one wasn't a prop dressed up to look tough. It was a genuinely engineered, drivable machine. Across every version, the constant has stayed the same. Whoever designs this car isn't thinking about a dealership lot. They're thinking about a symbol, and it's worked for nearly 60 years straight. And number 1, a car that time-traveled, literally on screen. The Delorean DMC-12, built by John DeLorean's short-lived company between 1981 and 1983 in a factory in Northern Ireland, before the whole operation collapsed into bankruptcy and a very public drug scandal involving DeLorean himself. Fewer than 9,000 units were ever built. The real production car ran a Peugeot Renault Volvo V6 engine, putting out a modest 130 horsepower. Genuinely underpowered for a car that looked this dramatic, stainless steel body panels that never needed paint, gull-wing doors that opened straight up. It was already the strangest looking car on any American road before Hollywood touched it. Then, in 1985, Back to the Future put a fictional flux capacitor in the dash, a plutonium reactor in the diesel, back and turned a commercial failure into the single most recognized car in movie history. We're flagging that clearly. The time machine components are entirely fictional. No real DeLorean ever hit 88 miles per hour and disappeared in a trail of fire. Here's the detail that still amazes people. DeLorean Motor Company was already bankrupt by the time the film came out. The car had failed as a business before it became a legend as a prop. Today, surviving DMC-12s regularly sell for well over $50,000, sometimes far more for screen-accurate replicas, for a car that couldn't sell well enough to keep its own company alive in 1982. That's the whole story in one car. A commercial flop that a single movie turned into the most famous car on Earth. So that's the list. 10 cars, 10 factories, 10 completely ordinary business decisions that turned into cultural landmarks the second a camera pointed at them. Which one surprised you the most? Did we miss one that deserves a spot on this list? There's always an argument to be made for the Batmobile from a different decade, or a car we didn't even mention. Drop your answer in the comments. Subscribe for more of this. Hit the bell so you don't miss the next one. See you on the next ride, where we might just find out one of these movie-only cars had a real prototype nobody was ever supposed to see.